And I have started the recording, so.
I'll talk to you later.
Hey Ken, it might be useful if you stop sharing your screen right now because we're just seeing a mirror of the Teams meeting. There you go.
Well,
Morning, Colleen.
Are we close to a quorum?
Morning.
1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7. Yes, we are.
Excellent. Well, without further ado, I will call this meeting to order. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for hopping on virtually with us. We've got important work ahead of us today to finalize this report and ship it off to the right people within the governor's office and additionally. We have a new member who we're excited to welcome today. I don't know if we all want to go through authority members and provide an introduction, but I'd like to welcome Robert Birdsey of Greenfront Energy Partners as a recent appointee of the governor to the authority. So Robert, welcome. Thank you for joining us. And would you like to introduce yourself in front of other members?
Hey, thank you very much, Skylar. My name is Robert Birdsey. I'm one of the co-founders of Greenfront Energy Partners. We're based here in Richmond, Virginia. We're an investment banking advisory firm that focuses exclusively on energy transition, which of course includes traditional wind and solar and battery storage. We help our clients to conduct M&A where they're buying and selling assets or companies. We also will organize fundraising for developers in that space. And I'm really excited to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Excellent. Well, welcome again, Robert, and looking forward to having your perspective reflected in future authority activities. Moving on, entertain a motion at this point. Well, first we'd call for any edits or suggested changes to the September 13 minutes packet. I have two quick notes to share. Ken, just two spelling corrections. In terms of under the future meeting location, I believe is missing the word was. It should be and was told. And then at the very end of the minutes package, we called for the meeting to be this October 4th today, not November 4th. Anyone else have any changes to the minutes packet? If not, we'd entertain a motion to approve them.
Motion to approve with those changes.
Excellent. It sounded like a motion from Greg, and I believe that was Joanne who seconded.
Yes, thank you.
All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Excellent. All right, the minutes are approved. Ken and or Aaron, I'll pass it to you on the an update on the status of the authority website.
Yeah, let me pull that page up here. It might take me a second.
I don't know if others are experiencing video bandwidth issues with Skylar and a couple others, but I'm going to go ahead and go off video. I'll turn it on if I speak, but just want everyone to know that I am seeing a little bit of pixelation and voices coming in and out.
All right, so as you all, except for our new member Robert, know, we were informed that as a government entity, we were not allowed to have a website on a commercial platform. It has to be within the state's system. And so our IT folks have been working on putting together a kind of it's a straw man for now. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of input, but I think it looks pretty clean to begin with. Let me go ahead and share my screen here, give you a peek at what it looks like. All right, can you see this?
Yes. Yes.
All right, so this lives on our website on the Commonwealth of Virginia domain. Right now, it's very bare bones. Gives a brief introduction of who the authority is, lists all the members, including our newest member, Robert, staff contact up here. This is just the beginning. We're going to have all the annual reports that have been done to date posted in this area. Links to the regulatory town hall, and then meeting information on our Virginia Energy website. If you go to this learn more, it takes you to a more detailed dive into who the authority is, what their mission is. And, I foresee this having additional links off of it to take you to solar legislation that's passed. Virginia solar and storage projects of note that we might want to list on here, but right now this is just kind of the skeleton. So be thinking about what you would like to see on this page and let me know, and I'll work with our IT folks to make it happen. Any immediate input?
So Ken, that's in the Virginia Energy website /renewable-energy/solar-storage. Is that the
Yes.
HTML? Okay. Ken, I think it might be helpful to separate solar and storage, on the title, solar development and energy storage potentially, just to match the title. It might confuse people, just solar storage.
Yeah, that was on my list to talk to our IT folks about. In fact, I was wondering whether the authority shouldn't be listed up here instead of down here. Bigger,
Yeah.
bolder.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and put all this stuff up here instead, and we'll just lead in with this little blurb and the members, and then the stuff on these two sidebars.
That's excellent. Thank you, Ken. Anybody have any thoughts to share now on the website outline? Anything we should add at this point? Cool.
Yeah, I was going to say, sorry, I had to unmute here. I don't know how appropriate it is for us to put this on the website, but I could see an opportunity for us to talk about major initiatives in the solar, the energy storage, electric vehicle, and other type of renewable activities like wind, et cetera. I don't know, Ken, Skylar, to the extent that would be important or relevant for this to break that out. But I think if we had a way to maintain that, it could actually drive eyeballs and, more importantly, discussion of what's working and what's not working from folks. I know this is a big undertaking to keep that current. It's always, static websites are static and stale, and I don't know what we really want as the overall intent here. So I would just offer that as a discussion point, and
So
really, what are we trying to do?
So are you talking in Virginia specifically or nationally? Yeah. Or okay.
In Virginia? Yeah, in Virginia.
All right, I'll look into that. An obvious item to add is upcoming legislation, and maybe even past legislation, and it just becomes kind of a running archive of solar and storage bills that have been introduced and passed. Thoughts on that?
Yeah,
I think relevant legislation as it influences and, possibly is tied to some of the either recommendations or some of the presentations that we've had where it is supportive of the expansion and meeting the governor's goals, I think would be a very good thing to tie together just to show how the legislation is supportive of those concepts. So I think that could be a very positive thing.
Okay. Another
And
thing I was
how will
wondering,
decisions be made about what is included or what is not included? Is it all legislation related to solar or select? And if so, how's that decision?
Yeah, that's a great question.
I would think if it's pending legislation, that all legislation is relevant,
Okay.
whether for or against, but that's just my opinion.
Just one person's opinion, I probably wouldn't post pending legislation as in just random bills that any member has filed. That could get kind of cluttery and it's largely irrelevant until it advances, but I would certainly see posting at the end of every session new bills that have passed that are relevant. If you're gonna try to post everything that's pending, I would just link to LIS's, they sort legislation by subject matter. So I would just link into their sort.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And that ties right back to maintenance of this thing. So, yeah, maybe we just include bills that have passed.
Yeah, thank you, Greg. That makes a lot of sense. And I think it might be helpful, certainly as we get this website off the ground, to have a agenda item on the first couple meetings of 24, where folks can bring forward suggestions, recommendations, or website updates, and get the approval on.
And one of the things I was going to offer is our wind authority recently has created some 1 and 2 member subgroups to look into various issues like workforce development and and other things. And I was wondering if that might be helpful here. Excuse me. Any of the members would be willing, instead of making me be the decider, just to float ideas past me. And
yeah, Kim, thank you.
If anyone's interested,
we could certainly build a subcommittee to work on this. Are there any authority members who want to volunteer on website brainstorming over the next couple months?
Yeah, this is Colleen. I'll volunteer to brainstorm.
Yeah, and I wouldn't mind helping too. I come from a different perspective than some other people do, but yes, I'd be willing to. This is Joanne Webb.
okay, great.
And Ken, I'm happy to join in on that small subcommittee as well.
Yeah. And I was thinking also, what about links to other organizations that are kind of out there fighting the good fight, including in Virginia? Aaron, does UVA or Tech have any particular sites up that are dealing with solar issues? Or is it just doing reports and stuff like that?
They have some websites just with their resources that could be relevant. I think we do already link to them on some of our other solar pages on our website, but couldn't be excluded here either.
Okay, you and I can maybe get together and talk about what's out there and what might be, good to have here. It never hurts to have things in more than one place.
So again, I would ask the same question: who decides what gets posted and what doesn't? And I would caution the authority about including anything that might come across as endorsement.
Well,
Catherine, if I'm reading the bylaws.
If it involves, if it involves like particular companies or anything along those lines.
Right. No, I'm talking, other university sites, NGOs, stuff like that. Like linking to the IREC website to maybe SIA. No, but SIA does do advocacy, but I'm just looking for visual interest, because right now this is really pretty boring, but at some point, if I can figure out how to work some pictures in the Virginia projects, I think that one might flash it up a little bit.
Yeah, and I think I agree. And also, I think we should think about what people coming to this website will want to know about. And SIA might be a good resource, and there's definitely others. But yeah, I think that's a question we could take up maybe in brainstorming. And then maybe we could also figure out a process by which we agree on what content to post. Whether that's like voting at the next meeting or having, a subset of people decide.
I think that might be a good approach, is for the subgroup to come up with the ideas of who and what to put up here, and then at a future meeting, bring it before the full group.
Perfect. That sounds good to me. Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Colleen and Joanne, for stepping up to help. And we'll try to get a couple websites, committee meetings on the books prior to our January meeting. Ken, I'm going a little bit out of order. Should have done this from the outset, but I see several more folks have joined. Ken, could we do a roll call of authority member attendance and attendees so we know who's here and who's not? I see a meeting guest, and then I know one member was planning to join via cell phone, but was not sure if he was going to be able to join. Could we go through the roll call?
Hey, Ken, we're not hearing you.
Oops, sorry, I was muted. Yeah, hold on a sec. Let me go to the members list. All right, Paul Duncan is here. Skylar is here. Joanne is here. Colleen.
aye, yes, here.
Yes. I saw Michael Walsh earlier. Is he still on?
I'm here, thanks.
Okay. Robert Birdsey. Harry Godfrey. Nope. Rumi Mota. Greg Habib is here. Catherine Bond is here. Michael Herbert. You out there? All right, so we've got everyone but Michael, Harry Godfrey, and Rumi Mota.
Excellent. Thank you, Kim. Appreciate that. Well, that brings us to the important part of today's meeting, the review of the authority's 2023 report. I hope to get consensus wherever possible on this report, certainly in the overview of the activities summarizing the past 4 meetings that we held in 2023, what was said and what was discussed. And then once we have agreement there, would like to move down to recommendations. Hope again to have consensus wherever possible here, but if there is not consensus, we will vote on each element of the recommendations, and the authority will move forward with a majority vote as described in our bylaws. So Ken, thank you for sharing the screen. I'll open it to authority members to point out changes, anything to finalize and make different right now. And just thank the several members who have taken time out of their days over the past few weeks to make substantial changes, to make formatting changes, to brainstorm and think of recommendations that we can make as our enabling legislation requires us to. So really appreciate everybody's time over the past couple of weeks, but I'd like to just open this up for discussion and move this forward.
One thing I'll add is the one item that I've not included in here yet, and I don't know whether we need to, in terms of presentations, was Aaron's presentation at the last minute, in the last meeting. Comparison of states, but I've got something ready to drop in. I was just, at the last minute, I was being mindful of page limits for the new guidelines, but if you think it's important enough that we drop that in, I'll take care of that and then recirculate.
Yeah, Ken, I think that would be helpful to put in. I like the small blurb that was in our minutes summarizing Aaron's presentation. I think that's pertinent. I mean, we included Mr. Meyer's presentation on energy storage, so we'd love to include Aaron's presentation as well.
I'll do that. I've got it ready to go.
Okay.
And other than sort of the formatting, the changes associated with updates to the presentations, were there any other substantive changes that were made since the last version we discussed at the previous meeting?
Yes, Catherine, on at least 2 occasions since then, Ken has circulated updates, some of which were comments from you and your colleague, Ms. Cosby. I took some time to update and make some corrections on the local permitting report. So yes, this has substantially changed since the September 13 meeting, making updates, expanding a little bit, and adding a lot more meat to the report.
I'm just asking, and I did see this morning that there was a new draft circulated recently. I'm just asking for a synopsis of what the substantive changes were. Again, not so much the formatting type, typographical or grammatical changes, but substantive changes.
Ken, I'm not sure if you want to take a shot at that, but all of these changes were tracked. Ken, do you want to take a stab at that question?
Well, I think a lot of the substantive changes were the ones that you made yesterday, and I'm going to go ahead and put all the markup on here. All right, let's see. I'll go down to the stuff okay, so all of this blue stuff was added yesterday. It's blue in my screen, but all the stuff from Skylar. Give you a minute to read through that. I think it was mostly just putting more flesh on the bones of what I had started with, to give the subject a little more context.
Is this the same version you sent out last night, Ken?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So no changes in that right now, right?
Correct. No, I've made couple of minor typo changes this morning, and I still have to go through and finalize all the formatting, the lines and paragraph spacing and stuff like that. But we don't need to worry about that.
Okay.
Just scroll down here, more Skylar stuff.
Yeah, I read through it late last night and I didn't see anything.
I think some of these details do add a lot of importance to this issue. Yes, it adds more details that really talk about individual counties, and it does add a depth of understanding, I think, about some of these issues that are happening in rural areas.
Yeah.
I think that was a good
Agree.
add.
Agree. Yeah.
And this is the only change I made this morning, spelling out the Solar Alliance the first time. Let's see what else. Skylar added the manufactured in China. I thought that was an important thing to add. I did this yesterday, I guess. And that's really about it. Skylar, did you, we got these here, okay. The recommendations, did you add these yesterday? It says Monday.
Reflected here, Ken, is I reformatted one and then included the RSTEP program and the educational recommendation based on Aaron's presentation last meeting, right there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you just scroll back up to those changes? Just the second last recommendation.
The RSTEP?
Yes. Well, the last, yeah.
Just a comment there. It should be the U.S. Department of Energy instead of EPA.
Thank you, Aaron.
Where are you looking?
Right at the page break. I messed with made a mistake. It's instead of EPA, it's the U.S. Department of Energy administering the program.
Right before our STEP program, which is the first line on the next page.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Okay.
EPA is running the Solar for All
Quick
grant,
question
so-
on just the phrase. Yeah, quick question on the phrase, the General Assembly should support these efforts. Is that appropriate language in a report such as this from these authorities?
Well, Catherine, this is we are making recommendations on what they should and shouldn't do. This is a grant opportunity, and I think support would come in the form of a letter of support, very similar to the one we did for the Solar for All at the last meeting. I'm
not suggesting that it's. I'm not suggesting it's inappropriate for entities to show support. I'm questioning whether in a report such as this that is phrased, we recommend, and it is focused and it has something along the lines of General Assembly should support. Does that trigger? I would yield to Greg on this, but does that trigger lobbying, or is that because it's phrased as we, and we are the members of the authority? And so again, I'm no objection to trying to get support, but naming the General Assembly specifically in a sentence that says we recommend.
Yeah, I mean, so we talked about this sort of philosophically last time, a little bit of should we be making recommendations to the administration and to the legislature about policies they should be advancing and steps they should be taking. I don't know that it was unanimous, but there certainly seemed to be some consensus around the idea that we should actually be advocating and taking positions. I don't think it triggers any kind of lobbying. We're not being paid by any entity and that kind of stuff. We're a state authority that wouldn't have any problem doing that. If the issue is the word we, because it's we reflects members as opposed to the authority itself, I don't see a problem either way with that one. But if that made people more comfortable. But no, I certainly believe that this authority should be making recommendations to the governor and should be making recommendations to the legislature to take executive or legislative action, this would be consistent with that.
Maybe you are, in this section where it says we, it should be worded members of the authority instead of we.
I think that's a good point. I think it defines who we is better. I agree.
I mean, if you're gonna do that, which I have no problem with, I would just change the word we to the authority recommends instead of we recommend.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That makes,
So that goes for all of these, correct?
Yeah. I think
I
that's
guess.
That makes sense.
Okay.
I think that's correct. I think that's correct because the authority can make a recommendation even if a few of the members either abstain or don't vote, or frankly, don't, we don't want to necessarily put anybody in a position where they have to sort of vote for each recommendation, because if you word it as the authority members or the authority itself, it might.
And yeah. And isn't it sufficient just to say the authority recommends in the heading and then just list what the recommendations are instead of going over the authority recommends
Yeah.
5 times? Yeah, okay, I'll make
Sure.
those changes.
Hey, if you'll excuse the rookie question here, could someone give me a quick cliff notes on how these recommendations were originated, and then whether or not was there like a session where robust debate takes place and there's a lot of discussion around these things? I'm just curious about the background there.
Yeah, so Robert, I'll give it a shot, and then Ken can chime in if needed. In years past, the authority has not taken the important step forward of making concrete recommendations to advance solar in Florida, Virginia. In our enabling legislation, it gives us 2 instructions for the report: to summarize activities of the authority and make recommendations to the governor and then specific chairs within the General Assembly. At the last session in September 13, we brainstormed some of these and discussed them, and then went through an iterative process over the past 3 weeks, sharing drafts of these with authority members, asking for folks to contribute, make recommendations, and then Ken has been compiling many of these changes over the past few weeks. So that's the discussion and the debate happened over the past 3 weeks, but it's happening now, as you see, and just trying to build as much consensus as we can around the entire report.
Thank you.
I mean, I think along those lines, some of these recommendations are incredibly detailed and don't necessarily include everything that needs to be considered. For example, I don't know that this authority has the expertise and certainly hasn't done the analysis to say how grid capacity should be out. Can you scroll up just a bit, Ken, to this at the top of this? The grid authority, the grid, like this authority declaring that there are bottlenecks in the current PJM interconnection queues, and suggesting that Virginia utilities use the existing grid capacity wisely. I mean,
I don't think there's any debate that there
I
are
don't-
bottlenecks in interconnection queues, though. I mean,
I
the
don't.
PJM
know that-
interconnection queue is frozen until 2026. It's one
I
of
would
the
again.
top
I
topics.
think it's. I think the phrasing is really. I mean, so given the bottlenecks, you could say that given the current status or the number of projects awaiting review in the PJM interconnection queue is much different than what this says right now. And I think grid capacity and the things that need to be considered there's a long list, like reliability, economic development. There's a lot of other things that should be considered. So anyhow,
I think the recommendation, though, is saying consider, right? Consider replacing near retirement fossil assets with solar and energy storage. So we're asking utilities in Virginia to consider these recommendations.
can you scroll down just a little bit too? I mean, I think when we say we support the SCC, the authority supports the SCC in requiring Virginia utilities to streamline distribution interconnect process and revoke unnecessary burdensome rules that make distribution level projects cost prohibitive. So again, there's no contemplation of, while maintaining a focus on reliability and safety or anything along those lines. I mean, in its current form, many of these, as worded, I think are such that there are things that should be considered if we're recommending these things that are not included. So again, understand that there are many things here, very good points raised on many of these, but some of what's here, the declarative statements and some of the recommendations, I think, are less than unanimous.
Yeah, I think to me, the question is, and I don't disagree with the way that Catherine just phrased it at all, but the question would be, is there a recommendation that's not appropriate for this authority to make, or is there simply a recommendation that some members will agree with and some members won't agree with? And if it's the latter, then I think we'll take a vote and we decide on that kind of stuff. If it's wordsmithing to get members to agree, like for example, if Catherine was okay with, if it said require, in addition to other solutions, utilities to consider grid enhancing technologies. If it was wordsmithing, I think it's worth the effort to wordsmith to get as close to unanimity as we can get. If we can't get there, some people just agree and some people disagree, and we would vote on it. And then if there's something where we've left our scope where it's appropriate for us to have an opinion on, if we start offering opinions on, K-12 education or something like that, or crime, then I think the question would be, is it appropriate to include? I would, as I read these, I think those are
good points.
Yeah, so I was going to say, I think they're probably appropriate to include. I understand, especially the ones that reference the utilities, why the utility would want to have specific comments on that, and they should. And I think if there's ways to get to unanimity with wordsmithing, I think that's worth the effort. And if there's not, then we should go through the effort and then see where we land.
And I don't want to slow up the process here, but I mean, there have been multiple simultaneous edits, Ken, that you've had to manage. You've done a great job at that. But if we are being asked today, and I don't know if we are, but if we're being asked today to discuss the recommendations, I'm totally fine with that. I don't feel like I'm in a position, or frankly, any of us are in a position without having discussed and sort of voted on each of the recommendations and seen them in their final form to know, again, I might not necessarily have objections to some of what's here. I'd just like to know what the meaning behind some of this and what the needs are. And it would be good to have that discussion in advance of having a vote. Circulating multiple versions of a red line document where changes are still being made up until just 12 hours before a meeting is to me, I'm not going to be in a position to vote on it, only because I haven't had a chance to fully understand the recommendations we're being asked to approve.
Hey, Catherine, just remember this when we're getting ready to walk into Commerce and Labor in a few months and y'all hand us a new version of a bill, okay? And we're not in the same room, so you can't see that I'm kind of laughing. I'm just joking, but.
Very much appreciate the discussion. To give credit where it's due, these specific recommendations Colleen was able to put together and did so over 2 weeks ago. And so every draft since the original draft on the 13th has included these, and I really appreciate the folks who've been able to dig into these, take some time and do the wordsmithing that they felt necessary prior to this meeting. We are really pressed for time and have to get this solidified for Ken to share with, Ken, I believe, Secretary of Commerce and Trade prior to submittal.
It'll probably go up through our internal chain before it goes to the secretary.
Gotcha.
And again, none of my comments, Ken, are directed. You've done a great job trying to manage the input coming from multiple directions. So appreciate your hard work in getting that done. Again, it's just a matter of changes coming from all different directions and not necessarily knowing what, you know, what we're going to be voting on until now. So.
And Skylar, appreciate, you know, I was the author on many of these recommendations, and I'm happy to go into detail about why, based on the authority's activities this year, each of them stood out as recommendations that we would want to give to the governor or the General Assembly.
Yeah.
Yes. So all of these were put together by Colleen, and all the things in blue above it were put together by Skylar. They just show up with my name because I was the one who pasted them in for her.
So moving past the housekeeping items about how we've gotten here and the iterative process that has resulted in this report, do members have wordsmithing contributions to make to any of these elements?
Yes, and I'm happy to get those to Ken if you'd like me to do that using the latest version.
So we're going to be voting as an authority on these elements today, Catherine, and we respectfully will not reconvene the authority to consider one member's wordsmithing. We're gonna vote on these elements today and get them through the proper channels by our deadline.
And if there was a decision to reconvene, it would have to be in person.
Okay.
So Catherine, is there any wordsmithing in here that you can think of right now that might help a little bit?
Can I make a comment on the authority believes adopting these recommendations is a key to enabling a just, clean. I like the word just, but I think it adds a different issue that may not be clear to everyone. We may think it's just. I'm not sure. That's a word that sort of bothers me a little bit. The just, enabling a just, clean, and energy. The just sticks out to me, but that may be a very, very mute, very small and insignificant point.
I put that in as, I mean, a just energy transition and a energy justice, I mean, means to me that historically disadvantaged communities get to come along in this transition and benefit in a way that traditionally, you know, we're actually receiving the, you know, externalities that hurt those communities, meaning they're the communities that coal ash is being like piped into, and they're the communities that are being hurt by the emissions from combusting fossil fuels. Whereas a just energy transition, it is using solar, it's using storage, it's using wind. There's no emissions. That's the idea behind it.
Well, I
that's the
personally
whole
like
purpose
the word.
of the Solar for All initiative.
Okay, well, I like the word. I just thought it might cause somebody else to have some angst about this. That was my comment. I do like the word there, but I just thought it might be viewed differently by other people reading this. But I understand, and thank you for those comments. Thank you.
I would say that from a wordsmithing standpoint, where the authority recommends the filing for unblocking, I would reword that from a wordsmithing standpoint to say the authority recommends addressing concerns associated with solar and energy storage at the distribution level. And in doing, this is the one below that, and that if that is a recommendation that is to be made, that it needs to be done in such a way that does not, you know, that also bears in mind reliability, affordability to non-participating customers, and safety.
Can I build on that and make the recommendation that we could replace unblocking with promoting, since that's in our authority's mandate? Would that be
That makes sense. Sure,
appropriate?
I think that makes sense. I think the authority recommends promoting the development of at the distribution level, provided it can be done in such a manner or in such a manner that it does not compromise safety, affordability, and reliability.
Yeah, I don't have any
And
objection
I-
to safety, affordability, and reliability being put in as concepts. I don't know that others have thoughts on that, but I mean, so safety, reliability, and affordability are, I think, within our mandate to have an opinion on, and certainly something the governor spent a lot of time talking about and members of the General Assembly. I don't know that I'd be more specific than just saying safety, reliability, and affordability.
I think also, do we put safety, affordability, and reliability into the lead-in? I think Virginians want reliable, safe, affordable, and clean energy in the first sentence of the recommendations section. Maybe that kind of sets the tone, and we just assume everything below us is having the baseline of reliable, safety, affordable.
Be an easier way to do it.
I like your word, actually, and I like your word, at this very first bullet, you said promoting, right? So again, I think it's some of the words using words like unblocking, that's we're sort of reaching a conclusion that some might not necessarily agree with all things below it are actually, I'm not saying whether I do or we do, but if we were to say something to your point that is aligned with the authority's governing documents, that the authority recommends promoting the development of solar and energy storage while maintaining a focus on reliability, affordability, and safety of the electric grid. And then every recommendation falls underneath of that. I think it's promoting the development of.
Yeah, and I think Ken was sort of putting his cursor above the language that's already in there, that the recommendations have a lead in there with reliable, safe, and affordable, clean energy. So I would sort of think that sort of captures all of it.
Yeah, I think it captures
Maybe
it in a way that is, but it implies that they are in conflict with each other and not the focus, a primary focus of the recommendations. The recommendations are premised upon promoting the development of while maintaining reliable, safe, and affordable energy.
Maybe we modify the second sentence in the recommendation, in the lead-in, where we say the authority, thus, given the mandate to promote the development of solar energy and energy storage in Virginia, offer these recommendations that, and then we continue, if enacted, we believe will help Virginians access. And Ken, if you like, I can just type that out and text it to you really quickly. So, does that make sense? So we lead in with saying Virginians want reliable, safe, affordable, clean energy, but there are barriers to development of solar and storage that we acknowledge. And part of that acknowledgement is actually creation of this authority originally. It was for the promotion of the development of these technologies. So now we say, given that the mandate of the authority is to promote solar and storage, we offer these recommendations, which we believe, if enacted, will help Virginians access preferred clean energy and create the economic and health benefits associated with transitioning to the clean energy economy in the Commonwealth.
I like that, Colleen.
If something were to be added that, again, maintains a focus on reliability, affordability, and safety of the grid.
Maybe it's in that last phrase, transitioning to a clean energy economy, which is what, the Clean Energy Economy Act is doing, while maintaining safety, affordability, and reliability.
I mean, so reliability, safety, affordability are embedded in the Clean Economy Act. I don't think it's meet the goals of the Clean Economy Act and do these things. It really is embedded in all of this. Like, we can say the words over and over again, but any recommendation ought to be taken into account the advancement of clean energy in a safe, reliable, affordable way. And so I would just put a sentence up top. All these recommendations are set forth to encourage the promotion of renewable energies in Virginia in a safe, reliable, affordable manner, consistent with, the policies enacted by the General Assembly or whatever. But I think you have some catch-all language, a lot easier than trying to wordsmith every single one, is make it clear that every recommendation acknowledges those basic principles of our current energy policy.
Agree.
Can you maybe say that again, Greg, and so that Ken can, so we can get that down? If that,
Yeah,
if we're going to
so-
vote on this today.
Yeah, so I mean, where Ken is, so there's a couple ways you could say it. You could either say these recommendations, if enacted, will help Virginians access preferred clean energy in a safe, affordable, and reliable manner while creating economic and health benefits. Or you could more explicitly say that all these recommendations are based upon the promotion of solar energy storage in a safe,
Without,
affordable, reliable way.
I think what you would say is not so much in a safe, but without compromising, or should be advanced without compromising safety, affordability, and reliability.
Yeah, I think that probably makes sense. If Ken, you want to take a stab at the 8 versions you just heard?
I'm going to try to type something in the chat, Ken.
Well, here, I think the way that Catherine just said it, these recommendations, if enacted, will help Virginians access preferred clean energy and create economic and health benefits associated with transition to clean energy economy in the Commonwealth without adversely affecting the delivery of safe, affordable, and reliable energy.
And should be
Can we
undertaken
make it a
without.
positive too? Like, while improving?
I mean,
No.
yeah, I think
Because
we'll
I
probably
think
have disagreement on that, but I like
Energy
that.
transition is going to improve the quality of energy delivered to consumers in the Commonwealth.
But we
Like,
have
for
to also
example, I'm
acknowledge-
looking
we
forward
have
to having
also
a solar.
acknowledge that it presents challenges. Like, it also does present challenges. They're not insurmountable, but we still need to maintain a focus on reliability, affordability, and safety. And so I don't think we can make a declarative statement that all those things absolutely, in all cases, will contribute to affordability, reliability, and safety. We have to maintain a focus on reliability, affordability, and safety while undertaking these things.
Yeah, no disagreements there. It's just that when I envision the kind of transition complete, it is a much more reliable, resilient grid because there's more distributed solar and storage across the grid that allows you to have higher levels of reliability and reduced outages and higher safety levels. So I think it's a little bit just word choice, but I think without compromising is fine with me.
reliability, affordability, and safety.
I would say without
Safety.
compromising the safe, reliable, and affordable delivery of energy or something like that, whatever the verb is.
That makes, I think that makes sense.
The safe, reliable,
And affordable. Catherine, would delivery be the right word, or provision?
Yes, I think delivery is fine.
Compromising safe, reliable, and affordable delivery of energy in the Commonwealth.
Excellent. Thanks, everyone.
also promoting instead of unblocking.
Yep. I believe that was the
Yeah.
consensus.
And then I think where it sort of declares that the utilities, there's the final recommendation. I think that support the SCC in requiring all of that. I think that at this point it's already before the SCC, and there's lots of different perspectives on that. So I would suggest removing that bullet altogether. And if you don't want to remove it, then I'm happy to provide some suggestions for changing the.
I'd like to hear the suggestions. I think it's important to acknowledge that it's not a solved problem.
I'm not suggesting it's a solved problem. I'm just suggesting that it's before the State Corporation Commission, and there's sort of active participation, in that, and will continue to be. And I don't think that this authority at this stage is in a position to say that the SEC should require utilities to do something of this nature, because again, we are declaring as an authority that it's unnecessary and that it's burdensome and that the recommendation is and that it is cost prohibitive. So to me, those contradict some of the fundamental things that are above in terms of the safe, affordable, and reliable delivery of electricity in the Commonwealth. And so again, we are likely not to necessarily agree on the declarative statements that are here, but should we in fact just say something along the lines of the authority recommends, again, without compromising safe, affordable, reliable delivery of energy, the SEC examine those things, the distribution interconnect process.
Hey, Catherine, can I ask you just a question you might know the answer to from a just a status where we are? Can you go back to that one? I'm sorry.
I don't think we need to repeat safe,
I wouldn't repeat
affordable,
that.
and reliable.
So-
We put it at the top so that it applies to everything.
So, Catherine, are these questions ones that are currently would be in a docket before the SEC currently, or are they teed up to be something in the future, or would the legislature have to do something
They're
in
teed up,
order
yeah.
to?
No,
What
the
are they teed
legislature
up
does
on?
not have to do anything. Yeah,
That's what I was
I
wondering.
think this is an issue that is teed up. Yeah, I think this is an issue that's teed up. Again, my issue is not in mentioning this as an area that, again, was reported on by one perspective that's part of the dialogue around these issues. My issue is with the declarative statements that are included in this and some of the other recommendations. For example, the ones about the localities, about PJM, and sort of again here.
So I actually probably would wordsmith this one, although I'm not sure it would make Catherine, I'm not sure it would make you happy. And I don't mean that in a flippant way. I mean, I'm just not sure we'd get to where you would want to be. I'm not sure the legislature should support the SEC. I'm not sure that is a concept. And I apologize for not having sort of thought of that earlier. I do support the idea of us encouraging policymakers to look for ways to streamline the distribution interconnection process and revoke unnecessarily burdensome rules and make distribution level process projects cost prohibitive. I do agree with that. So if I were drafting this now, my recommendation would be that we recommend that policy makers, look for opportunities to, and then strike everything before the word streamline. But
I would agree with that as well. Yeah. And one of the things that I mentioned in my recommendations was please correct anything that's legislatively and like regulatorily incorrect in the way that we're making the recommendations. So I think that's a really positive change.
Cool. Ken, could we see that reflected?
So I would say, if this were me again, I would say policymakers should instead of the legislature should, because frankly, it's all branches of policymaking in this one. And then rather than support the SC and require Virginia utilities, I would say seek opportunities to streamline or advance policy to streamline.
I like advanced policies too, because this is an active docket at the SEC, right?
Catherine, does that reduce any heartburn?
I mean, again, I think that advanced policy to streamline distribution interconnect process is fine. I think after that is still an issue.
So my
Because
reading,
like the question with that is it cost prohibitive to the individual developer or cost prohibitive to overall customers who might be absorbing some of those costs? I don't know exactly what we mean by cost prohibitive, and if this is a recommendation the legislature or other policymakers are going to get, we've got to, I think, be clear on that.
Yeah, but what you're really talking about is unnecessarily burdensome rules. And so, I mean, it's hard to not be in favor of removing unnecessarily burdensome rules. We're not coming out and explicitly like blaming somebody for that or setting out what they are, but they should be aware of the processes and when they become unnecessarily burdensome.
So in the sentence after burdensome rules.
Yeah, I mean, I like it as it is now, but I understand that we aren't all going to agree.
Catherine, would you kind of wholeheartedly sign on to this if we remove everything after burdensome rules?
I mean, again, I think that there's some other recommendations that might need wordsmithing, but I'd be more comfortable with this language in this particular section if it didn't make the presumption that related to some of the, you can leave rules and put a period after rules. I would say address, you could say address unnecessarily burdensome rules, because I don't know what they're revoking. I don't know.
Okay.
Well, I think it would be the things that we see, I mean, above in the report, I'm forgetting his name, who gave the presentation in April on the distribution level challenges of development of solar and storage in Virginia. And I think, so, okay, first of all, we still need the word rules.
And then I think that
Oh,
one's fine.
sorry.
And I mean, I guess address and revoke are similar.
Advanced policies.
Without the last clause, it makes unnecessarily burdensome rules seem very broad. But instead, we're talking specifically about the ones that make distribution level development cost prohibitive. I don't like, I'd be interested in other members, and particularly if we have any developer members on the call that want to chime in.
Advanced policies.
I don't think it's too, my personal view is that it's not too controversial to leave the cost prohibitive part of the sentence in.
Yeah, and I mean, we spent some time and energy adding in the safe, reliable, affordable elements to the beginning, so that sets the stage here.
So the recommendation above this one, Ken, if you,
Which one?
the recommendation above this one.
Above this one?
Yeah, then yes, the recommendation before this.
Font.
This one?
Could you scroll so we could see that entire I mean, I guess again, there's a presumption that the Virginia utilities are not using existing grid capacity wisely in this, so that's my primary issue with it. And again, I think this recommendation just, I think, goes into some areas that are not within the authority's purview and have, we cannot make a recommendation about retiring certain assets in favor of others without considering the complete picture. And we don't have the expertise nor the authority to do that. So I just think this one falls outside, to me, as worded, outside the purview of the authority.
I would argue that it's not outside our purview. I think it's perfectly fine to have disagreements about whether these are directionally how you want our recommendations to form, like the form of the recommendation you want it to take. But just going back to the very simple job that the authority has of promoting the development of solar and storage in Virginia, transmission level projects are blocked because of interconnection queue delays. So here are some ways that you can add more solar and energy storage by using our existing grid capacity wisely. One is replacing near retirement fossil assets that already have interconnection capacity available with solar and energy storage. It's not saying you have to, it's saying consider.
Again, I think the concerns can be addressed if we remove the legislature should direct the utilities to use the existing grid capacity wisely. If you delete the reference to directing Virginia utilities to use existing grid capacity wisely, because then the recommendation could simply be that policymakers, like we've worded it elsewhere, policymakers should consider requiring utilities to consider grid enhancing technologies and to study whether or not, I don't know. Again, I don't know that the authority should make a recommendation about PJM, but I'll leave that to others.
Would it help if legislature was changed to policymakers here and wisely was changed to more efficiently? Because isn't that the whole idea of the gets?
Again, I think it is, if it is the recommendation, then it should be just the recommendation that we recommend that that policymakers consider requiring utilities to consider grid enhancing technologies. Keep that bullet.
Let me try to, so the reason that I started this recommendation with given the bottlenecks in the current PJM interconnection queue, and it's a little typo, the queue should just be queue, not queues. Is that given it is difficult to add new resources at the transmission level right now, and given that, so two ways to do that are to interconnect them at, you know, at transmission nodes or add new transmission capacity. So that's actually assumed in here, but not stated. It's that given new transmission capacity is hard to build, and given the interconnection queues are stagnated, this is a, you know, barrier to solar and storage development in Virginia. So therefore, we should direct Virginia utilities to use their existing grid capacity wisely for promotion of development of solar and energy storage. And then the recommendations are kind of presuming that we can't build new transmission, we can't interconnect new projects unless we do these creative things. It's kind of like use existing grid capacity creatively, if that is a better word choice.
Again, if policymakers are going to be encouraged to do anything, perhaps the bullets themselves say use existing, develop creative approaches to using existing grid capacity.
I like
Require
develop
utilities
creative approaches to
include-
using existing grid capacity.
Require utilities to consider the grid enhancing technologies. And then I would suggest that instead of being as specific on the last bullet, to say study opportunities to reduce time in a queue, whatever queue it is. That's distribution or trend.
Other members, please chime in here. You all have had.
I don't know if was some of that getting put in there, or you just were looking for more comments?
Yeah, I'm just waiting for some sort of agreement on what it should be. Where it should be.
I put in a proposal, I guess, for the first, I mean, the second bullet, given the bottlenecks in the chat. I don't know if.
So can I take a slightly different approach and see if this offends everybody? Oh, now you're sharing over your.
Well,
because he had to go see what I put in the chat.
Yeah, I'm just copying what Colleen put in there.
But before you put that in there, can I offer an alternative idea? So leave the first bullet as it is. The authority recommends. I would make the next bullet say something like, and you don't type this yet. Policy makers should consider solutions to the current PJM issues affecting transmission, how it wants to be done. And then the next block below that, the first one would be encourage the utility to creatively utilize grid capacity. require utilities to consider grid enhancing technologies, study whether PJM reform or PJM departure would provide a faster path to low cost energy, and structure it that way.
So
that
rather
was
than
probably
start
too
with
much to
given the
That is- I think
bottlenecks,
that's
we start
agreeable.
with policymakers should consider.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
mean, I understand what you're saying. There's some language in there that just feels
Yeah.
slightly off to me. The bottlenecks and the wisely just feel
Yeah,
slightly
yeah.
off.
Yeah.
And so I would say, you know, policymakers should consider solutions to current PJM interconnection queue issues, which are affecting projects at the transmission level.
Yeah.
The type.
I would say current PJM interconnection queue issues should consider current PJM interconnection queue issues.
Solutions too, I think you said.
Yeah. Yeah. Policymakers should consider solutions to, you're right. Policymakers should consider solutions to current PJM interconnection queue issue. No. Sorry,
That
Ken. Yeah. Policymakers should consider solutions to
Consider solutions to
current PJM interconnection queue issues that are, and then I don't know again how you phrase it. Is it barriers at the transmission level?
I put in the chat, maybe the issues which are delaying projects trying to connect to the grid at the transmission level.
I think that's good language, Carly. I agree with that, and I
Okay.
agree, Greg, with your approach.
all right. Do I need to go back to the comments?
I can just read it to you. So
Yeah.
after issues, I would just, that are, and then after that are, you can delete, or just write this and then delete the rest.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Delaying projects trying to connect to the grid at the transmission level.
And then, so then the first, I agree with that. And then I would make the next bullet a version of what Colleen had said before, but it's what you just cut out.
Wait a minute.
I wouldn't use the word wisely, but it would be, you know, creative use of existing capacity.
Would
or
it be
whatever.
one of these sub bullets?
I would.
All right.
And- So to me so Colleen's given you language, the second part of her first sentence in that chat comment, given the bottlenecks, blah, 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 but it's the creatively utilize existing grid capacity.
creatively
I bet.
use.
Yeah, I bet, Catherine, you would like encourage more than direct, but
I think it's a brilliant use of words, Greg.
I mean, I'm cool with direct, but I would like us to get as much consensus as we can get. If anybody thinks that dramatically, substantively undermines the point, then I'll fight for direct. But
I like direct. It is direct. I like direct.
Well, I see these then as a sub bullet to this one. The creative ways are by doing all of these.
I agree, Ken.
So also you can delete wisely because we wanted to replace the creatively concept so that we don't have wisely, so we don't imply anything that we don't mean to.
I think there would be a colon after capacity, and then we would delete the word example right above. Cool.
And I don't even think we need including, like if you just put a colon after capacity, all three of those bullets are under consideration.
Yeah, so this is way then in the weeds of wordsmithing, but I think that those three bullets need to be phrased slightly differently now that you have that intro sentence. So it should be the legislature should direct Virginia utilities to creatively use existing grid capacity. And then whether it's consider or direct, but I would put all of those as just consider, because that one already has consider. We just had requiring them to consider. I would say consider the use of.
Maybe, so maybe we actually put, I'm sorry, this is in the weeds of wordsmithing, but the legislature should direct Virginia utilities to creatively use existing grid capacity, considering, for example, colon.
Then you get rid of all those considers.
And then we can remove consider from each of the bullets below.
Okay.
Especially the second one, which says consider twice now.
So this one would be using.
Can we just say
using grid enhancing technology? So take the first 5 words out.
Yeah. Yeah. And then studying. Yeah. Maybe, well, okay, yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, that works.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for the wordsmithing and for the help there. Thank you, Ken, for dealing with us. We've touched most recommendations that seemed to raise questions. Right now, we'd just kind of like to poll authority members. Are we comfortable adopting the report as written? Do we feel the need to go one by one to make sure we have majority support on each recommendation? What are folks thinking?
What I can do
Can you just
is
scroll back up to the other recommendations, Ken? Can you just
Sure.
scroll back up to the other recommendations? I think there was another page of recommendations, is there not? Can you scroll down just so we can see the bottom of this page, please? Thank you.
The governor instructed director. Ordinance recommendations. The governor instructed director.
Any comments here?
Um,
A couple of other items to raise. I recommended we not include the appendices describing the history of the authority. We keep the enabling legislation as a reminder to policymakers that our term expires in 25 unless renewed. And then did have of course, keep the listing of authority members and demonstrate the vacancies that we have for the governor, senate, and speaker appointees.
And Skylar kind of created a score sheet here for member attendance, which I thought was good.
Yep.
So, and I don't know whether anyone can off the top of their head confirm their attendance.
Just a quick question. Are there any other reports of various authorities or citizen advisory boards that include an attendance report for members?
I don't know, but I know we do a report to the governor's office every year on member attendance.
Yeah, we've struggled a couple times this past year to reach a quorum, and thought this would be a useful tracking tool.
I think
Yes,
this may come into play in whether or not members are reelected.
Just a
Or
quick
re-upped.
on Robert.
Can you just score
Robert, sorry, you're new and I'm picking on you. The term expiration date, I think, has a typo. 273.
Robert will still be kicking.
He'll be here for another 1,000 years.
And does everybody's appointment expiration date look correct?
Yes.
Great.
And what I can do is after cleaning this all up, doing all the final formatting and stuff like that, if you all are going to vote to approve it now, send it out later today, give everyone a chance to read the thing in full. And if you find errors, corrections, typos, and stuff like that, those can probably be easily incorporated. It sounds like you've all made it through the big hurdles, which I knew the recommendations were going to be those.
Yeah, Ken, I think that's an excellent idea. Let's clean this up. I think if there are any formatting, spelling, grammatical changes, I think we'd have the authority's approval to make those as are seen best fit. But we do have the meat of everything solidified now. So with that, with 15 minutes to spare, would entertain a motion to approve the 2023 annual report of the Virginia Solar Energy Development and Energy Storage Authority, to get it to the right folks for eventual delivery to the governor and chairs of the proper committees in the General Assembly.
I make that motion.
Second.
Second.
Who was the second?
I was Paul.
Greg. Paul
Greg.
Kennedy.
Whoever, doesn't matter.
You want to flip a coin or you want me to just pick one?
Pick
I
one.
think I heard Greg first.
Well, a motion having been properly made and seconded, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
And I just say that this is kind of a milestone in that this may be the first year that this report has been submitted on time.
And give it one second. None were opposed. Does anyone abstain? Okay, no opposes, no abstentions. Looks to be unanimous approval of the 40 members for this report. And Ken, sorry to interrupt you, but completely agree. It took years to get here, making concrete recommendations to policymakers in Virginia. So everybody should feel very proud This tailored down report, I think, made it a lot easier of a document to deal with and consider. So thank you, everybody. This is a huge milestone. Folks in the governor's office are really excited to read it. I spoke with one representative since our last meeting, and she emphatically said, absolutely, yes, we want recommendations. We want to know how to make things better for clean energy development, solar and storage development. So I think there will be receptive ears, receptive eyeballs reading this report. So thank you, everyone.
Hey, Skylar, can I make comments? Think about next year, and I totally agree with all that. And also, one comment that Catherine said that I think was a fair comment, and it was just a small comment in the larger conversation. But we received a lot of presentations from subject matter experts this year. One could argue that they were one side of a conversation, and so without turning this into a debate forum. I do think if we have a presentation where we know there's like a discrete other side to the story, and I know you did give some folks some opportunities to who declined to participate in other ways. But let's just make sure we don't want a free for all debate concept. But if there's someone going to come in that says Dominion sucks, right? All right, well, they're going to say that Dominion ought to have an opportunity to be heard on, why they don't. And so just as we think about topics for next year, just maybe something to keep in the back of our minds.
I think too, Greg, in support of that, we had also talked about having the local governments also come in and give their perspective. So I think that feeds very, very well into that overall, let's get a voice from both sides of the table so that we have an understanding, for instance, of the setback considerations that they're proposing and legislating and things like that. So I second everything you just said. I think that's a definite focus of what we need to do.
Well, and that's the one I was thinking of, where my recollection is that Skylar said we tried to get them to come in and just haven't been able to get anybody.
Yeah.
So we can only do what we can do.
Yeah. Perfect segue to the next topics for future meetings. You are right. We did invite VACO. That politely declines it maybe later. My plan is to invite VACO and the Data Center Coalition as two organizations that authority members have previously identified. Give them the floor on our, I believe, January 10th meeting. Don't quote me on that. You can correct me, but let's get that on their calendars now and make the offer. To that end, have this opportunity at every meeting to brainstorm future topics, presenters, to any authority members having recommendations on who we should invite. And would you, as an authority member, be willing to help us invite these people?
I think the electrification theme is something that, contacting, for instance, Blacksburg. I know they have a big push right now for electrification with Virginia Tech there. I think that's one thing that we should consider, and I could reach out and take action with them. It's my former alma mater, so I could easily reach out through PEC and the other organizations. I know obviously Ken and Aaron can also reach out through Tech and reach to the right people. So I think the electrification component is a big deal. I think it has an implication for cities, jurisdictions, towns, et cetera, the local munis and co-ops. And I would like to hear that. I think it's more challenging down in Southwest and the electrifications that are coming there. So having voices from down there might be a different story than what we have up here in Northern Virginia, like with Novak, et cetera, et cetera. So I would urge some diversity there. And then the other, I think the key thing is just with the infrastructure bill, some of the localities they're challenged on where it fits in the bigger picture of what they're doing. And I don't know if we could get somebody from the localities to either express their, confusion, their support, their, whatever on some of the infrastructure works that are going on and how it fits in. I think that could be useful too, because that goes right towards the use of the grid edge technologies. It goes right towards the electrification components. It goes right towards all of that. And I feel there's a there for us, at least to be aware and be able to talk about it next year at this time. But I'll defer to everyone's wisdom and comments here.
So Paul, there's two ideas. One, electrification, using Virginia Tech Blacksburg and their goals as an example and representative of Southwest. And the second suggestion was the infrastructure bill's impact on the localities.
So that's different than the the IRA and those are different, and how localities can utilize that money as part of the grid technology. So I think the Venn diagrams do overlap. The Virginia Tech thing was completely different. I know Virginia Tech and Charlottesville, for instance, and other jurisdictions are looking for the electrification component, which includes energy storage, mass transportation, depot level, at semi-truck, et cetera. And that is all putting pressure on local utilities. And I think that's going to have an impact back in the Commonwealth. And so I would like to hear those perspectives. I don't think we have a very vocal footprint with respect to electrification and the components of EVs and perhaps larger transportation type of electrification. So I think having a voice there next year would be something of worthwhile.
Okay.
For what it's worth, one of our ex-employees is now the head of the utilities for Virginia Tech, and he's very knowledgeable, and he comes from Dominion also, and he might be a good candidate.
That would be perfect. Yeah, that would be perfect. And I have a relationship with PEC and the folks down there within the town, within the city from other stuff. So I'd be happy to help lead that with you guys. So those would be the two. And then I also have an open item that I committed to at the last meeting, and that was to reach out to the engineering group at the SEC and ask them if they'd be willing to come in and give us their perspectives on interconnection of both, not just both, but including solar energy storage and electric vehicle service equipment, or EVSE type of things.
But Skylar, would it be appropriate, and maybe this is as much a question for Catherine, if you're still here, as it is for Skylar, but to just have like a presentation from the utilities or the co-ops or the munis or somebody to just come in and give us their perspective on all these issues, just so open, sort of come give us your view.
I'd suggest that the authority might want to hear about our new storage pilot that was recently announced, because we are piloting a few different technologies that are longer duration storage technologies that just different technologies. If you all want to hear about that, we could get our subject matter experts together to talk about that topic specifically.
That's the
I
long.
like that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, I like that idea. I saw the announcement of those pilots, and that's really exciting. Maybe in conjunction to that, we could also have somebody who can speak to kind of the current grid scale solar and storage deployments of that are happening in Dominion's territory.
And Skylar, if we haven't talked to him, maybe it's worth inviting Sam Brumberg from the co-ops to give us a solar and energy storage and co-op territory update.
And he's volunteered several times.
Yeah.
It's just his schedule has never worked.
Sam would be happy to do that, I'm sure.
Same with APCO. Same.
Yeah. Oh, everybody. Do a APCO, co-ops. I mean, I don't know if we can squeeze them all into one day, but I don't know if someone on behalf of the municipals wants to talk about what's going on in their territory.
It'd be a cool idea to have an extended workshop with as many co-ops and munis as we are willing to get together, as are willing to attend, to talk about solar and storage and exchange ideas.
And EV. I think EV is the snowball coming down the mountain. Our discussions with Public Power show it's a very big unknown for them.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you. I've done my best to jot these down, and then Ken, when we make the minutes for this, let's try to spell these out as discrete topics for 2024 meetings.
Do demand response technology and solution providers fall under our purview? Like vehicle to grid or residential storage, things like that?
So I think the short answer, let me take a stab at that, and then we can discuss how accurate this is. So when we talk about demand response, we're typically talking about load type of technologies, demand response, right? So the question then becomes, when you couple that with the generation, and you mentioned EV, and you mentioned, maybe residential type of storage, we now have a dispatchable resource that can actually act as that generator behind the meter to provide equivalently, to reduce load. So I get the demand response component, but I also think these are behind the meter DER components. And you're exactly right. The EV to grid or of that nature, where we have rolling storage that potentially could be putting energy on the grid, I do think is under the energy storage component bucket of our charter and where we are, because it is storage. Just because it's got four wheels doesn't take it out of the contention. I think Tesla sitting in our garage absolutely is part of that discussion. Whether it's behind the meter or above the meter, utility scale is not a distinguishable factor. And the aggregations of these devices will move the needle for the local utility as well as for the transmission utility. So in aggregate. So I do think it is under our umbrella to be very much cognizant of them. I don't know the role due to the penetrations and where the technology lies in the pipeline, if it's our focus, but I think it's a discussion piece in our overall purview. I don't know how the other members feel about that characterization.
Yeah, Paul, I know we spoke at length about it. Robert, if you've got ideas for presentations or something that we could dig into there, we're all ears.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, some of our clients work in those sectors, and I'm sure they would welcome the opportunity to speak with you all, with us all.
Yeah, you're part of it now too. There's an us in there.
This meeting didn't change your mind, did it, Robert?
Sorry?
This meeting didn't change your mind, did it?
No, I'm still in.
The sausage making at its finest.
We got to see it. It'll be posted on YouTube later.
No, it won't. Or maybe it will be.
We have, I believe, a few members of the public here. Will give a brief opportunity, as we always do, encourage folks to share public comment with the authority. Is there anybody online who would like to share any perspectives with the authority at this time? All right, well, Chris and Abigail, if you join next time, I'm going to call on you by name to share some comments. But are there any other items to address today?
Well, let me just say the next meeting is January 9th, not the 10th.
Thank you.
10th is the start of the GA.
Yeah, thank you, and appreciate that reminder. And I, as mentioned last meeting, have been in contact with the clerk of the house, and I believe next week they will open up the system for us booking a room in either the House building or the new General Assembly building for future meetings with all of their technology capabilities, easy parking, and a nice meeting room for everyone. So that's the tentative location for the meeting on the 9th, if they're not too busy preparing for the session in their new office buildings. But we'll let you all know as soon as possible. And Robert, we have meetings set quarterly in 2024. If those aren't already on your calendar, Ken will share those with you just so you can
Yeah,
get
I'll need to forward those to you.
Yeah, I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, everybody. Huge congrats on taking this important step forward. Ken will share a final draft and a PDF form with folks today, make any formatting changes, and then get this shipped off to the folks at the Energy Department, and then the final recipients of the report. If there's nothing else to add, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn until.
Yeah, before you do, I'm going to send the final copy out, but when I'll give you till what, tomorrow close of business to get me any things you see in there? Is that enough?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Would entertain a motion to adjourn until January 9.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Thank
Thanks,
you,
guys.
everybody. Appreciate
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Be
Thanks.
safe.